politics at its best is about love, compassion, and empathy. Um, I know with everything going on, what I try to be, what I try to offer here in this series, Politics Through Inspired Action, is to be kind of like a calm within the storm, to be a safe space among all the chaos. And so for a moment, I would just like to offer a little attention on something a little bit more uplifting and motivating. And this goes back to, this concept about love is based, or politics at its best is about love, compassion, and empathy. That was something I first heard at a Bernie rally during the Bernie 2020 campaign. And I remember the first time I heard it, and from my memory, I remember. I believe it was AOC, and it was during a rally, one of the first rallies that she did campaigning with Bernie. It was in Iowa, and she said, politics at its best is about love, and I remember initially having two different kind of reactions at hearing that for the first time. So one part of me was kind of like, yes, that's what I'm here for. Politics at its best is about love and compassion and empathy. We're in this together. We're not alone. We're here. Operating from a higher place, right? And that, like, that energy that we always felt at the Bernie rallies was always very high and uplifting, right? It's like this higher frequency, this new earth vibration, right? Like, you really truly felt the spirit of not me, us, we're in it together whenever you were at one of these rallies, right? And so part of me was like, yeah, like I'm on board for that, right? And then there's the other reaction came more from my cynical, like, the ego side. That's like, are you kidding? Like, politics and love, like that's like oil and water. Like, we don't talk about love in politics, and compassion and empathy. Like, what is that? Like, we don't see that and we especially don't see it in capitalism, right? So that was the cynical part of me. But overall, like, I was just so excited to hear that. And because again, that brings things to a whole nother level. But it was also a great reminder, again, of why I and so many spent so much time working and volunteering to help get Bernie Sanders elected to be president, because it wasn't about him. It was about getting that type of worldview, that consciousness, that level of cognizance into the White House. And for him to have an administration, right, and a cabinet of other leaders who operate from that level, and to think on that level, right, that those are people who operate, from the heart, from the spirit, from the soul, right? That they lead with that even say that in the area of politics, which again tends to be very argumentative, divisive, combative, it's corrupt, it's greedy, it's power hungry. Like, that's what we're used to when it comes to the topic of politics, and why it tends to repel a lot of people, and why, a good reason why, like, half the country doesn't vote. Like, we had a huge turnout in this last presidential election, but a big part of that was mostly because Trump was so horrible that more people, wanted to get him out. And on top of that, we had a pandemic. So it was just this, a lot of voting came from, like, a place of desperation and anger and just like, okay, yeah, Biden's not the best, but I just want Trump out, right? So it was just coming from this place, again, of still lesser of two evils. It's not joyful voting or inspirational voting or inspired voting, right? Which during the primaries, voting for Bernie Sanders was inspirational. It was motivating. for a lot of us. And, you know, um, and that spirit is still there. And I know it's heartbreaking and devastating that Bernie is not president. He should have been twice, at least twice, like 2016 and 2020. And I know, I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I have not let go of that like many people, right? And so that's another reason I kind of hang around with Bernie still, because even though he's not president, I am very happy he is the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, because that is an extremely powerful position, and he has in his hands the power of reconciliation, right? As the chairman of that very powerful committee, we have Bernie in a position of institutional power. So it's not just him being the most popular politician in our country. He actually has institutional power now as the chairman, and he's been aggressive in using that power, right? Which is, again, awesome, and it's wonderful, and it's something that is very new to a lot of people. And again, it goes back to even when Bernie ran, he opened the door to this new way of looking at politics, right? And this new way of how we're going to work together and how we're going to change the system. And he was a daily reminder during the campaign that we the people have the power, that we can change the system, because there's more of us than there are of them. We just have to remember and recognize that power and work together collectively, right? That's the whole, fighting for someone we don't know. This is fighting for Mother Earth. This is fighting for the higher good of all. That, it's just again, this system, this modern capitalism system that we have, that has been basically engineering the humanity out of humanity, right? Because it basically views people, animals, and the planet as just a means of extraction, as much profit as possible for a small handful of wealthy at the expense of the rest of us, and the planet and future generations. And so the climate crisis and the pandemic are clear signs that this system is no longer sustainable. We're not on a good path. We cannot stay on this path. If we're going to have a future, if future generations are going to have a future, if we're going to stop just the suffering of millions and millions of people, because it's just not right. It's not right that people, go bankrupt or go into debt or even die because they can't afford health care, or they can't afford their medications. It's not fair or just that we have senior citizens in their 70s and 80s who are doing side gigs, driving Uber and Lyft or delivering pizza so they can have some extra money, right? You should have enough in your Social Security and retirement that you should enjoy your golden years. That, we have areas where, like, people should be able to breathe clean air and have clean water. I mean, Flint still doesn't have clean water. I mean, this is again of systematic problems, infrastructure issues that are not being fixed and addressed because the focus goes to the military industrial complex. It goes to corporate welfare. It goes to these CEOs who make millions of dollars in compensation at the expense of their workers. Like, we modern capitalism does not work for the higher good of all. It works for a small handful at the expense of the many, and it just can't go on anymore. And so, again, that's a daunting task. And I know, again, it often, if you watch the news and social media, that it is often easy to just feel hopeless and helpless and negative and cynical about all of these things, because those powers are so vast, and they have endless money, and they will use it, and they will be dirty and corrupt and vile and greedy, and they don't care, right? And that is the worst in politics and humanity. But we also need to remember that things don't happen in a vacuum, and that there's yin and yang, right? So for all of that, there's also politics at its best, which is about love, compassion, and empathy. And that's something that I just wanted to kind of bring up as a reminder today. And Bernie himself, just his presence, he is a walking example of justice, right? In compassion and empathy. And I know a lot of us supported Bernie for president because we could have had a humanitarian president. Like, how amazing that would have been, that we had a president and the leader of the free world who would do everything in his power and his administration's power to prioritize the health and well-being of Americans and our planet before the interests of corporations and billionaires. Like, he was going to flip the priorities, as it should be. Like, these things should just be common sense. Like, healthcare is a human right is just common sense. I mean, having, being a human on this planet, having compassion and empathy, experiencing that's a human right. Like, we shouldn't have to ask to live in dignity, to experience compassion and empathy from others. Like, that is a right. That should be a given. That is common sense. That should not be a struggle. That should not be a topic for discussion or debate, and it is mind-boggling. But if you look at how this system, this modern system of capitalism is set up, where it prioritizes the wealthy and the corporations and profits at any means, you can see why there is a lack of empathy and compassion, and love is secondary. Well, actually, I should clarify that. Love is prioritized on the love of money and the love of power and the love of greed, instead of, the love of humanity, the love of our earth, the love of our communities, the love of a higher good of all, and that we all have we agree to a social contract that all of us should have, like, at least a basis level of security with healthcare, with water, with food, with housing, with a secure retirement. Like, those, education, those should be basic fundamental needs that all of us should just be secure in, and not constantly struggle and worry about, and not have to have 2 or 5 jobs in order to have basic living. It's ridiculous that our minimum wage has not been risen since July of 2009. So, that has got to change. And just as an example of how, just because change isn't happening as fast or the way we envision it, doesn't mean it's not happening. So here is, like, a current example with raise the wage and the $15 per hour minimum. As you know, recently we've had this big disappointment when the last economic package that went through reconciliation, some parliamentarian decided, oh, well, the $15 minimum wage can't be in there because of some rule. And then we had multiple Democrats, vote no to include it in there. And so, and then the Biden administration didn't push back on any of this. And so, that was hugely disappointing. But now what we're starting to see workers across this country rebel en masse and not put up with these starvation wages anymore. So you're starting to see these signs that, particularly in fast food joints, where they're like, we're closed today because we have no workers, or the crew has quit, or we have minimal staff because we can't hire people, and this narrative that there's a a shortage of people looking for jobs is just false. What is actually happening is that workers are deciding, you know what, we're not putting up with this crap anymore. We're not gonna accept starvation wages. We deserve better. And so now you're seeing more companies offer higher, more livable wages, right? $15 an hour, $18 an hour, $19 an hour with some good benefits. And the companies that are doing that are seeing a surge in applicants, right? They're not having problems hiring. It's the ones who just want to keep these starvation wages and these awful benefits, so they're not going to get workers, because workers are finally standing up for themselves, right? So we're seeing change on a cultural level happening, because the masses have decided we deserve better. And again, that's also a reminder again of politics, coming from a place of love, compassion, and empathy. These are workers who are expressing a love for themselves and knowing that they deserve better and that they can have better, right? And compassion and empathy for their lives and their future. And these companies are realizing, okay, yeah, like we can't do this anymore. We got to offer better. So, again, change is happening when we come together, when we're fighting for somebody we don't know, when we're focused on the higher good, when we can look at politics from the lens of the heart and the soul and the spirit instead of the ego, which the ego keeps telling us, no, we can't have this, no, we can't do that, where the heart and the soul is like, yes, we can. We have the power. There's more of us, right? And that's where Bernie was constantly reminding us. Like, he would come in with that grandpa, that favorite grandpa energy. Like, look, kids, you have the power. You're smart. You're talented. You can do it. Like, work together. We can do it, right? And like, we would instantly like feel our energy and our vibration like just escalate, right? And we would feel more optimistic, and we would feel hopeful and helpful and more motivated, inspired to go out and to tell others, right? And to organize and mobilize and do the things that are productive, versus spending too much time on social media arguing with people and focusing too much on what's wrong and what's not happening. And again, there is a lot of validity to that, right? There's a lot where we have the right to be angry and frustrated and fed up with stuff. But also, we must take that energy and channel it into, being productive and solutions. And again, where are we organizing and mobilizing? Where are we winning? Where are we getting successes? Because that is happening. We don't see it because mainstream media doesn't cover it, right? It's you get more clicks and views feeding the negativity and feeding the fears and the anger, versus like, where's the good news? Where's the successes? Where's the progress being made? That is happening. And so we just have to keep an eye. We have to keep an eye on it and remember that. And Bernie, again, just with his presence, reminds us of that. That again, the spirit of not me, us is the spirit of we are not alone. There are millions of us coming together, and we need millions more to come together. And again, with the more focus we can, and as much time and energy we can put into politics at its best, is about love, compassion, and empathy, right? Again, for the love of ourselves, for the love of our families, our communities, our country, our Mother Earth, that we're fighting for someone we don't know, that we are operating from our higher selves, that we are operating from the heart and soul that wants that, when you hurt, I hurt. When your children hurt, I hurt, right? When When you're successful, I'm successful. When you're prosperous, I'm prosperous, right? Again, we are connected as human beings, you know, from this very powerful network, right? The power and energy of love and joy is the most powerful energy in the universe. It is what created everything. And we at any moment have the power to harness that. So each day, I this is something I personally do, is what can I do today, even if it's small, where I operate from a place, from my heart, my soul, my spirit, that is productive and is adding to the solutions to help, you know, make the world a better place, to help create a country that works for all. Even if it's simple as giving someone a compliment, or smiling at somebody, or giving the barista an extra dollar per tip, something. Even small things make a difference. Or even just saying hello to somebody, looking somebody in the eye. You never know, you know, that even simple level of human contact can make a world of difference in somebody's day and in their life, and they inspires them to pass it on, right? So collectively, you know, we just have this positive action, productive, solution oriented thing that's happening and spreading across the country, and to the point where we get millions and millions of us in mass realizing, yeah, we deserve better, we can have better, we will have better. And again, not me, us. Politics at its best is about love, compassion, and empathy.